From the Samsung Production Studios in the heart of Hazleton, Pennsylvania, it's your News 13.
Brought to you by SSPTV and the Standard Speaker.
Primary day was a rough day for the Luzerne County Election Bureau, which created a slew of problems for voters, primarily in Greater Hazleton. The election failure and what will be done to fix it. Our top story on News 13 for this Wednesday. Good evening, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us. I'm Kathy Bazinski. Precincts unable to open because materials weren't there. Candidates on the ballot who shouldn't have been. Even local government races given the wrong name. They all happened in Luzerne County's primary election yesterday, and the Election Bureau is now under fire. Christina Papa joins us live in the studio to outline the primary problems and possible solutions. Christina?
Kathy, the votes are in, but are they accurate? Luzerne County's Election Bureau dropped the ball in a number of ways yesterday during the primary election, and it all started here in Hazleton.
Voters are calling yesterday's primary predicament an epic fail. The issue started bright and early Tuesday morning when an election box went missing right here in Hazleton.
The first issue at 6:15 this morning was the fact that the judge of elections in the 4th Ward in Hazleton did not receive her box of election materials. The courier left the box unattended on her porch and it disappeared.
Luzerne County Board of Elections attorney Michael Butera is focused on fixing this primary shortcomings, starting with changing the way those important boxes are delivered.
We're going to personally deliver the boxes by the election bureaus directly to the judges of elections to make sure they get them.
As the day went on, things didn't seem to get any better. A mistake on the ballots in Schuylkill and Carbon counties. Hazleton City Administrator Steve Hahn wasn't taken off the ballot, even though he withdrew from the race in mid-March.
That's not a Luzerne County problem, but the problem may have stemmed from Luzerne County by us not notifying those other counties of his withdrawal.
By the end of the night, Hahn had received 226 Republican votes and 167 Democratic votes just in Schuylkill County. Hahn doesn't think those votes would have changed the outcome of the election. He blames the low votes on the community's disapproval of certain candidates.
I think it was the voters. They heard what Mrs. Yankiewicz has done over the last number of years. She has a record. And I think they rejected that in some ways.
Adding more to the mix, some ballots in Hazleton read Bureau Council candidates instead of City Council candidates yesterday. This mix-up may have also confused voters, perhaps swaying votes. Luzerne County Council member Rick Morelli calls the slip-ups unacceptable.
In my mind, it's the county's fault. There's new management in that office. I'm not exactly sure who to point the finger at, but it's the county's responsibility, and the county needs to fix it. It's embarrassing to the county.
Luzerne County Board of Elections attorney Michael Butera told News 13 yesterday inexperienced staff may have played a role in yesterday's slip-ups, but he promised us that the Election Bureau will have all of the kinks worked out by November's election. Kathy?
They had a rough day. Thanks a lot, Christina. Well, perhaps some confusion when you went to vote for Hazleton City Council yesterday. As you saw, the candidates were there, but they were listed under the wrong title. And as Matthew Petrillo tells us, the confusion also led to some frustrated contesters.
City Council had some big winners in yesterday's primaries. Former city mayoral candidate Jeff Cassat had the most votes on the Republican ticket. Meanwhile, incumbent council president James Perry also secured a Republican nod. On the other side of the political aisle, David Sosar, Jack Mundy, and incumbent Kevin Shatter received enough votes to compete in the general election. But not among them was Carlos Mejia, a Latino who could have represented 40% of Hazleton's population.
This is like the war. You have everyone here, European, American, Latin American. So we're supposed to be running as a country, not as a family business. So that's a new blood means.
He says he's frustrated he couldn't garner enough of the community's attention to come out and vote. Now that he lost the primaries and his name won't be on the ticket in November, he says the Latino community may have a difficult time getting their issues across to an all-white city council, like the difficulties some had yesterday voting.
The board of election need to be better educated, more friendly, even bilingual. Because when people go to vote, especially other language speaking than English, they feel kind of frustrated.
Mejia is talking about the mishap that happened on the ballots. There were no city council candidates to be found. Instead, they were all listed as borough council candidates. While the candidates' names were correct, the error could have easily confused non-English speaking voters. Still, some voters didn't even notice, like Mayor Joe Yanuzzi.
I went down the list and I saw council members. I didn't see borough council members. It's in a different script, so I didn't recognize it.
Now, at the root of the polling problems were calibration issues with the touchscreen voting machines. Now, poll workers have been trained to resolve these type of matters, but they can only be solved if they notice the errors before people start casting their votes. Mayor Yanuzzi says the election results were likely not affected by the mishap, that the election board needs to do a better job, especially when it comes to proofreading. Matthew Petrillo, News 13, Hazleton.
And there should be some old faces as well as new ones in the general election for the Hazleton Area School Board. Incumbent directors Robert Mahalik and Clarence John have come out on top of the unofficial vote getters for both Republicans and Democrats. Jared O'Donnell, a King's College finance student, and retired McAdoo-Killairs Elementary School principal James Chapman took the lead in the rest of the votes. The four unofficial winners all have their individual qualifications and why they're best for the position of school board.
They have 4 years to see what I've done. They have 4 years to have watched, to have read, to have attended meetings and looked at me. And I think I've been true to what I said 4 years ago.
My educational experience and experience in general, I worked my whole life, or most of my life, dealing with people and trying to come to solutions to problems that exist or occur.
My background in finance, both professionally and educationally, I feel that having someone well-versed in finance, having someone going to be having a degree in finance next year in 2014, I really feel that having that background really is imperative.
Well, on at least one ticket, there's still a close call between O'Donnell and incumbent Carmela Yankovic. Also, a mistake on those ballots in Schuylkill and Carbon County, which kept Steve Hahn on the ballot, could have potentially changed the outcome for some of the other candidates. Well, despite felony wiretap and recording charges being filed just last week, Luzerne County Controller Walter Griffith won yesterday's Republican primary as he tries to retain his seat. This is video of Griffith at his arraignment in Wilkes-Barre last week. Despite the charges, he defeated Karen Seppa-Hirko in the Republican primary for controller. He pulled 56% of the vote at the polls yesterday. Griffith wasn't present for the tabulations at the Luzerne County Courthouse last night. The state attorney general charged Griffith with illegally recording 3 conversations without the consent of the other party. He's free on bail. Convicted on those charges by law, he would not be able to hold public office. Now, Griffith will be facing off against Democratic candidate Michelle Bednar in November's election for Luzerne County Controller. The Cunningham Township tax collector Michelle Bednar defeated current county council member and former commissioner Stephen A. Urban in the Democratic primary. During her campaign, Bednar promoted her financial and management experience for the position. The Bednar-Griffith matchup will now make for a very hot general election race.
Michelle Bednar has shown that she's a good vote getter. She beat a proven candidate in Steve Urban, and it is a Democratic county. Walter Griffith will have an uphill battle against Michelle Bednar. It's going to be a horse race in November. No matter what happens, it'll be a horse race in November.
Bednar won 58% of the vote in yesterday's primary election for Luzerne County Controller. Race for Luzerne County Council has taken shape for the November general election. The 5 Democratic candidates on the party's ballot, Eileen Sorokas, Michael Giambra, Renee Chirafi-Tefera, Richard Kick Heffron, and incumbent Vice Chairwoman Linda McCloskey-Hauk automatically secured nominations for the same number of spots on the 11-member council. For the Republican nomination, Kathy Dobash, Sue Rossi, incumbents Eugene Kelleher and Harry Haas secured spots on the November ballot. Absentee ballots counted late Tuesday night sent Republican Paul DeFabo to a 23-vote lead over Alex Milanis for the 5th and final spot on the party's Luzerne County Council slate. Final confirmation will come when the county does the official tally on Friday. The 5 candidates with the most votes in the upcoming general election in November win 4-year terms. Well, the majority of races throughout the region featured candidates who were uncontested, but in some communities where there was a contest, didn't fail to disappoint. On the always adversarial Banks Township Board of Supervisors, a shakeup, although half the township's registered voters came out and overwhelmingly chose Joe Clark over incumbent Walter Babowski for Democratic candidate for supervisor by a vote of 242 to 31. In a race for Cunningham Borough Council between 8 Republicans, write-in votes cast by Democrats apparently knocked out 2 of the 4 incumbents. Ray Schneider, Tom Facile, Barry Jones, and Joe Gallagher won all 4 Democratic nominations and scored 2 of 4 Republican slots. Incumbent Ronald Shatter lost the re-election bid. In the contest for a 2-year term, Joe Gallagher defeated incumbent Richard Sebring. On to Freeland, where political newcomer Ed Appleman won the Republican nomination for mayor. He'll face Councilman John Buda on the Democratic side. McAdoo Borough Council incumbents had no problem beating 3 other challengers to win the nomination for the Democratic ballot in November. 3 council seats with 4-year terms will be on the line in the general election. Winning team of Joe Madovchik, John Shigo, and Robert Wills were the top vote getters. 3 Republicans ran unopposed. After 40 years of service, 90-year-old Sugarloaf supervisor Earl Miller was defeated last night in the Republican primary. Richard Yost will move to the general election. On the Democratic side, Shannon LaRock was able to fend off a write-in challenge by Dan Zola to secure that nomination. And incumbent councilman in Tamaqua fought off the challenge of a former junior councilman trying to win a Republican nomination. No Democrats in the primary. Jack Culp ran unopposed for a 2-year council seat, and Mayor Christian Morrison also ran unopposed. And still ahead on News 13, an arrest in an ongoing investigation of students selling prescription drugs in a local high school. But first, News 13's election roundup continues with a look at one amazing race for candidates for Pottsville mayor. You'll meet the young candidate when News 13 continues. Well, it's going to be some race. Voters in Pottsville choose a new mayor for the first time in 13 years, and whomever wins will definitely bring new blood to the office. Matthew Bertillo joins me live in the studio with more on what's shaping up to be a fascinating election, Matthew.
Kathy, it is. The Republican winner for Pottsville's most powerful political position graduated college just last week. He's 23 years old, he's an active member in the city's Republican Party, and he could very well be Pottsville's next mayor.
Yeah.
The get out to vote signs are all coming down and the polls are all now closed. But for Scott Thomas, today is the start of a new beginning.
When you are in office long enough, you become complacent.
If you're worried about how much experience a 23-year-old can have, Thomas has a degree in public administration, was a delegate at last year's Republican National Convention, and in 2009, he was elected to serve on the Pottsville School Board.
That gave me a lot of experience of how to do budgets, because each year we're faced with decreased funding from the state and federal government.
During this election, Thomas ran with a team of 2 Republicans running for council. Tina Zanis is one of them.
I've known Scott for a number of years, and I've seen his success and his just frankly tremendous effort. He has shown great promise and great effort in all of his endeavors from a very young age.
Thomas's campaign manager is a former Pottsville mayor who says Thomas is eager to make code enforcement more accountable in cases like the recent Mother's Day fire. He also wants to increase police presence and fix the city's streets.
Our city streets are adventurous here in the city. You get a lot of potholes, a lot of rutted up streets, so I think that's a problem as well.
Thomas will face current city council president James Muldowney, who ran unopposed in the primary.
The last 9 years, he's, to my knowledge, never voted against the current mayor. So I don't know how you could promise change while never offering any suggestions to change.
The current mayor is stepping down after 13 years in office. Thomas sees it as an opportunity to pump some Republican blood in Pottsville's overwhelmingly Democratic political body. And Kathy, that may be his toughest challenge yet.
Absolutely. It's going to be a fascinating race to watch in November. Thanks a lot, Matthew. Well, there is other news tonight. State police say a Drums woman was killed when she was thrown from a vehicle in which she was a passenger on Interstate 80 last night. Investigators say 56-year-old Carolyn Dorneman was pronounced dead at the scene of the crash in Butler Township. She was riding in a car driven by 21-year-old Frank Beck Jr., also of Drums, when he lost control of the car, which went off the road and struck 2 trees in the median. The car rolled and Dorneman was thrown from the vehicle. No word on Beck's condition. State police at Hazleton trying to get more information about the crash and ask anybody who witnessed it to give them a call. Well, 3 Crestwood students are facing charges after police say they conspired to sell Ritalin in the high school. Police say Derek Charles Hudzik, Wapalpin, and Desiree Newton of Whitehaven are charged with drug conspiracy and criminal use of communication facility. A 3rd student, Annalise Dabenhauser of Whitehaven, faces 2 drug charges and 2 counts of criminal use of the communication facility. Now, Dabenhauser told police she has a prescription for Ritalin but stopped taking the drug and recruited the other students to sell the pills in the high school. Students were charged after the school principal discovered a sandwich bag containing 344 pills in Dabenhauser's possession earlier this month. Time now for our regional weather from the National Weather Service. Checking the radar, we do have a chance for some showers and thunderstorms moving through into this evening. A bit more perhaps to our north and east, but those that do cross our path could be pretty strong, so keep an eye on those. Creative condition is pretty darn cute today. It kind of looks like a bear in a yellow slicker out in the rain. It's by Julia Ogurkas Dara, a student at Valley Elementary. Now let's take a look at News 13 weather from the National Weather Service for Greater Hazelton for tonight. Scattered showers and thunderstorms. Some of those storms could be severe with large hail and damaging winds, a low around 64. And then for Thursday, showers likely and possibly a thunderstorm with a high of 74. Showers and thunderstorms continue into the overnight with a low around 55. Heading to Schuylkill County tonight, a chance of showers and thunderstorms, low around 63. For Thursday, showers likely, possibly thunderstorms throughout the day, high up to 74. Showers likely at night with a low around 54 degrees. And let's check the winning midday lottery numbers. Good luck if you play. The daily 921, the big 4 9905, Quinto 58584, and the treasure hunt 6 11 20 26 27. Hope you won.
Good evening, everyone, and here's tonight's Talk of the Town. The Hazelton FOP Lodge 18 will hold its second annual golf tournament Saturday, June 1st at Edgewood in the Pines. The cost is $320 per foursome, and for more information, you can call 570-459-4940. And one more quick announcement, the St. Michael's Church in Shenandoah will be holding an indoor yard sale Saturday, May 25th. All proceeds will benefit the church. And for more information, you can call 570-462-0809. That's tonight's Talk of the Town. News 13 extends our deepest sympathies to the family and friends of these recently departed. Robert E. Duke Dougal, formerly of Shenandoah, the Walukovich Orvittsville Funeral Home is in charge of the arrangements. Bernard Milio Sr. of Frackville, the Nice Heart Funeral Home is in charge of the arrangements. Peter Chuba of Pottsville, the Nice Heart Funeral Home is in charge of the arrangements. William E. Casey of Ringtown, the memorial service will be held Friday at 1 p.m. from the Cole Heisenroth Funeral Home. Louis J. Tyrone of Hazelton, the arrangements are under the direction of the Our Cremation Services. Thomas G. Hobbs of Easton, funeral will be held Friday at 11 a.m. from the Ben Salem UCC Church. Ralph Bonner of Wilkes-Barre, services will be held privately and at the convenience of the family. And Michael Casmer of Frackville, the Nice Heart Funeral Home is in charge of the arrangements. Tonight's obituaries have been brought to you by the Smilax Floral Shop on 15th Street in Hazelton. Free delivery to all local funeral homes. Call 570-454-0111. And by Mia's, once again the Hazelton area's #1 rated restaurant. Call 501-3410 for information on their luncheon packages.
SSPTV Sports on News 13 with Fred Barletta Jr.
Well, are we headed for another Williamsport Hazelton area Lady Cougar showdown in softball? We got one step closer to that. Last year was a thrilling 1-0 game that Williamsport won to get into the state tournament. This year, they're the #1 and 2 seeds. And yesterday, well, while they were both idle, they now know who they're going to play. Let's take a look. First of all, the Delaware Valley Warriors had no problem getting by Scranton, and so it'll be Delaware Valley Williamsport tomorrow. Meanwhile, Wallen-Pulpack 5-1 winners over Wyoming Valley West, and so the Bucks will be headed toward Hazelton on Thursday, where they will take on Vince Tribal Pieces Hazelton Area Lady Cougar Club at 4:30. So there's your matchups: Williamsport DV and Wallen-Pulpack Hazelton. We now know that from the games that took place last night. Now, let's go to Class Single A baseball and tell you about what's happening today. The MMI Preppers in the semifinals, they're up at Old Forge. MMI, Old Forge, 4:30 today. Meanwhile, Blue Ridge Lackawanna Trail will square off. That's the other half. Again, the District Single A finals. As far as Quad A, the Hazelton area Cougars are out, but some interest there. It's Scranton who knocked the Cougars out, taking on Williamsport. Wallen-Pulpack, Wyoming Valley West will tangle as well. Down in District 11, Quad A today, it'll be Whitehall and Freedom, Stroudsburg, Emmaus, Pocono Mountain East and Pleasant Valley, and Parkland and Liberty. Meanwhile, the Tamaqua Blue Raiders waiting in the wings to find out who wins today between Northwest and Lehighton. So the #1 seed Raiders, very curious to see what happens there. Meanwhile, Pottsville waiting in their half of the bracket. Blue Mountain, Southern Lehigh today, and it'll be Pottsville getting the survivor there. Single A, Pine Grove, Catasauqua square off today, North Schuylkill and Minersville, Notre Dame of Green Pond, and Penn Argyl. Now, Single A, Williams Valley, they are the number 1 seed, but Marion could get a shot at them. What do the Colts have to do? They have to knock off Schuylkill Haven today. Schuylkill Haven, Marion, that one going on down in hometown. The number 2 seed Tri-Valley waiting to see Lehigh Valley Christian and Moravian. That's the way it's lining up in District 11 as far as baseball goes. Now, softball, Single A, Nativity and Tri-Valley will play at Blue Mountain tonight, or actually tomorrow, under the lights, and it'll be Williams Valley and Minersville squaring off at Blue Mountain in the first game there. So that beautiful facility with lights, they can play those late games. I like it. So do the fans, to be very, very honest with you. Well, Bob Simmons, the Hazleton native, who has spent the last dozen or so years between Lehigh University and Ball State, well, he's going back to his roots in more ways than one. It was announced he's accepted the position to be the head men's basketball coach at Marywood, just a little bit north of Scranton. And when I say returning to his roots, he's coming back home to northeastern Pennsylvania. Now, he did coach Division III as a head coach previous to the Lehigh experience, and then, as we said, he's been at Lehigh and Ball State as the head assistant under Billy Taylor. When Taylor was fired at Ball State, that put Simmons on the blocks for looking for a job, and this is the one he thought was best. And we're going to be talking to him a little bit later on this week. A press conference next week to officially announce Hazleton native Bob Simmons will be the new man with the Marywood Pacers. That should be a pretty nice fit. News 13 Sports is sponsored by Sand Springs, featuring a world-class golf course as well as celebrations, the area's most luxurious banquet and wedding facility.
And plenty more news and information headed your way on News 13. We'll head to Schuylkill County and tell you about one mayor's race that is sure to have a fresh perspective. That story and much more news when the 13 crew comes right back.